All right. Thank you so much for coming to this info session for Australia and New Zealand. My name is Andres Montaño, one of the study abroad coordinators here at Green River College, and I'm here with Patrick. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, and how many people do we have online?
We got four.
Four. Hello to
Around
the four
four.
online. Yeah, my name is Patrick Million. I am one of the faculty members who will be leading this program.
All right, and then we have two alumni.
I'm Nick Olson. I'm one of the alumni from last winter.
I'm Zoe. I'm also one of the alumni from last winter and a student advocate for the Australia New Zealand program.
All right, thank you so much. A little intro about this program. This program happens every winter, and it's been happening since 2001, believe it or not. So 20 plus years, well, minus the COVID years. We are able, this is a Green River College program, but we have a partnership through the Washington State Community College Consortium for Study Abroad. That's a big, word, like name. So we call it WICSA. And then 20 community colleges get together to pool resources and share the programs. So that's why in many of our programs, not only Green River College students come, but different students from Seattle colleges, Spokane, and the other partner institutions. So that's how we are able to provide many opportunities for you each quarter. If you're a Running Star student, if you're a domestic student, if you're international student, you're all welcome to apply. The requirements look a little different to some of you, but we're gonna go over them a little later right now. A note about study abroad in general, this type of the classes that you take in these programs are very different from the one that you use, right? They're holistic, they're more hands-on, they're out there, right? So for the classes that Patrick is gonna explain in a little bit, like you may find that, the class is in a sanctuary, the class is in a museum, and it's very much designed for you to learn the local culture while you're still learning about your classes. Speaking of classes, these type of classes that we're gonna present for this program, they fit mostly into the general AA degrees. So there is a little flexibility to different types of students. Without further ado, I'm just gonna hand it over to Patrick, so you can start your.
Yeah, I'll take over. Can I get you guys to stand sort of?
All right.
Just because otherwise I'm gonna be like going back and forth and crossing in front of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mentioned, my name's Patrick Million. I know one of you, the others don't. Can I get yours names? What are your names?
I'm Kate.
Kate.
I'm Madeline.
Kate, Madeline, and Stephen. Wonderful to meet you. Hello again on Zoom. So I'm Patrick. I have been at Green River for 5 years now. Before coming here, I did my MFA and my PhD at the University of Washington. And last year I taught an intro to poetry class on study abroad. I will be teaching the exact same class this time around. If you identify as like a poetry person or an arts person, excellent. It's gonna fit in perfectly with your interests. But if you don't identify as a poetry person, you are actually the person I have had in mind when I planned the class. So the idea is to use poetry as a way to meet the culture, as a way to immerse yourself in the environment and the people and even the languages of these places. So if you're like, poetry's not for me, don't worry, it's gonna be great. So poetry will be your way into experiencing these places. Hopefully these folks can attest to it, because they walked away having turned into poets. But how did I spend my study abroad? It's 2 months, you get to do a ton of stuff, but I really focused on the arts, going to museums, theater, concerts, did a ton of hiking. Uluru and Fiordland were my favorite places. And plenty of beach time. You'll see a lot of beach pictures on this. But who else is coming? Unfortunately, Ruth couldn't be here today. She had a family obligation. But it is very likely that Ruth will be joining us. Dr. Ruth Mueller is a professor of ethnomusicology with a PhD from the University of Sheffield out in the UK. And she'll be teaching a class called Music and World Culture that will be sort of exploring the music of Australia and New Zealand, but not just music. She'll be looking at the soundscapes and the ecology and the culture. So music will again be a way into understanding these places. She's really excellent. It's a bummer she can't be with us today, but she's fantastic. Quick side note, she will come with us as long as we have 20 or more students enrolled in the program. If we have fewer than 20, you're stuck with me. But if we have 20 or more, then we'll have a team of 2. All right, so where are you going? You're going to Melbourne? Melbourne? Say it however you want. When you're there, you should say Melbourne. We're going to Melbourne from January 10th to February 7th. I think I can take care of that. So about 4 weeks there. Afterwards, we will go to Auckland. Auckland is in a country called Aotearoa. It's also in a country called New Zealand. Aotearoa is the Te Reo Maori word for New Zealand. New Zealand has 2 official languages, so while we're there, we'll have some time to immerse ourselves and learn the Maori language, as well as the version of English they speak down there, which is its own brand. But we will be in Auckland from February 7th to March 7th, so 4 weeks in that location. Here's kind of the breakdown of what your winter quarter will look like. No need to memorize all these dates, but I know it's helpful to kind of wrap your head around it. About a week of Zoom classes before we leave, just kind of getting acquainted with each other, the syllabus, that sort of thing. And then we travel to Melbourne, Victoria on January 8th. It takes 2 days, thanks to the magic of time zones and thanks to a 16.5-hour flight. We will not arrive until January 10th, where we'll hang out for about 3 weeks. And then you have a week on your own. We have a travel break. So during that travel break, you can go wherever you want. You can go out into the outback like I did. You can go up to see the Great Barrier Reef like these folks did. You can visit Sydney, Tasmania. You obviously can't do all of this, but you have your options. Go wherever you want during that week. And then we go to Auckland. We do it all over again. We do 3 weeks kind of studying, living together, and then a week off to travel, go wherever you want. You can stay in Auckland. The city has plenty to offer. You can go elsewhere in New Zealand, or you can fly off to Fiji. Again, the adventure is yours to decide. Then we head back to Seattle on March 7th, and we have some Zoom sessions to kind of wrap it all up. So we have an 11-week quarter, right? That's how long quarters are at Green River. This is an 8-week program, half in one country, half in the other. When we're in Melbourne, where are we gonna stay? We're gonna stay here at a place called Newman College. I'm gonna move this so you can really appreciate these pictures here. Nice, so Newman College is affiliated with the University of Melbourne. It's a beautiful building, feels very Hogwarts in the dining hall in there. It's a wonderful place where your meals, your lunches and dinners will be provided. This is kind of an aerial shot of where we'll be staying. Newman is right here. So that means downtown Melbourne is right there. So you are right nearby when it comes to the center of the city and all of that has to offer. But it's a very easy city to get around in. You can take a quick tram, get out here to St. Kilda Beach. You can go right over here to Lygon Street. There's plenty to do. You're really in the heart of the city while we're in Melbourne. We will be partnering with Annette Cook. She will be our biology faculty. She's an Aussie herself with tons of local knowledge. So she will be the one taking us all around the place on our different excursions, places like the Healesville Sanctuary, the Jawbone Marine Preserve, and the King Lake National Park. About once a week, we'll all get on a bus and go out into the field. Annette will primarily be leading us on those excursions, and it'll be a chance to really explore the ecology and the biology in a hands-on way. After we wrap up in Australia, we fly off to New Zealand, to Aotearoa, where we study at a place called the Unitec Institute. This is a change of pace. When we get to New Zealand, things slow down. We got a pool where we stay, the sun is out. Things just slow down when we get there. Melbourne has a population of about 5 million. That's more than the entire country of New Zealand. So you'll notice things are a little bit quieter, but it has a chill, relaxed vibe all its own that I think you'll really, really enjoy. Part of the work that we do in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is we visit the Te Noho Potahikanga Marae, which is the ancestral meeting house of the Maori folk there at Unitec. So we'll visit the marae. We will get to meet some Maori elders, engage in some workshops, some hands-on learning. You'll get a chance to create your own greenstone necklace, learn about the special form of jade that is found in New Zealand as incredibly important to the Maori people. So I would say that when we're in Australia, the big sort of selling point, the animals, right? You got the koalas, you got the kangaroos, you'll see them, you'll meet them. And then we get to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and the big selling point there is Maori culture and the immersion with that, which I can't recommend enough. While we're in New Zealand, we will be partnering with Lilith Fisher. She will be taking us on all sorts of excursions out there. Places like Wharapu Beach, places like Rangitoto, places like Tirikiri Matagi. I won't get too deep into the weeds about it, but it's this incredibly precious and well-protected preserve of these extremely rare birds that are found nowhere else on Earth. It's an incredible experience getting out to meet these animals. So these are the classes that you will be taking if we get 20 folks or more. Biology 127 with Annette and Lilith, English 113 with me, and Music 104 with Ruth. Andres can talk more about how those courses fit into your overall ed plan. And he also mentioned that this is what your classroom looks like. We do spend some time in the classroom, right? We got to sit down, we got to talk through things, we got to learn some content, but then we got to get out there and use that content and actually explore the places where we'll be living. So here, the Marine Preserve, folks out exploring tide pools with Annette. This is the Tawharanui Peninsula in New Zealand, folks posing on some rocks there. Like there's a lot of beach stuff. There's Newman, and there's us reading poems to each other on the beach after swimming. So what does a typical week look like? What's a typical week going to look like for you while you are on this trip? Here's a typical 5-day week. Monday, we'll have class in the morning, and then the afternoon is yours. Go explore. Do a little homework, please, but don't do too much homework. Go explore, go experience some new things. Tuesday, combination biology lecture and workshop. So be in the classroom for a little bit of it, but then you'll get out there, sort of go on walking tours, go on some observations, log things. Wednesday, class in the morning, and then a city excursion. So those are the afternoons when we'll go somewhere like a museum or like the State Library, which is cooler than it sounds. The Australian Centre for the Moving Image. So we'll get out into the city. But then Thursday, that's when we'll get out of the city. Those are the days when we pile on the bus and we go on our biology field trips to get out into the field. And then Friday, we'll have class in the morning, sort of debrief, discuss, and then we're back to independent exploring. And you have the weekend to get out and really see these places. So we like to have a nice combination of structured, guided exploration, but then also totally independent exploration, where you can discover what you want to discover. And I think these folks can attest to the fact that both of these countries have a ton to offer. No matter what you're into, you'll find it there. I'll leave this stuff to Andres.
Yes.
Do you wanna hold off and we can hear from our alums, or do you wanna cover?
Sure, yeah.
Cool.
So I do wanna make a quick note about the classes. You mentioned the 3 classes, about 20 students, but what if we don't get 20 students, we get 16 only?
Good question. If you only get 16, this will go away. And it will get replaced with English 236, which is a creative writing class. So you can sort of think of it The way your English classes will feel is it'll be sort of well-rounded, you know, you'll look at fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. But because you're taking this intro to poetry class, kind of imagine it shaped like an egg. Where it's like, okay, not fully rounded, it's sort of pointed toward poetry. That'll be something we focus on a little bit more. But because we'll integrate a larger creative writing curriculum, you'll also explore other genres. Yeah, question.
For, let's say if we don't get 16 students, for the English, would that also fulfill our secondary English requirement? Or would that be its own thing?
Yeah, as in like 126, 27, it would not fulfill that.
Okay.
It would fulfill either the elective or the humanities, fine arts, English distribution. But it would not. Nice. Yeah, but it wouldn't fulfill that. Good question. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna turn it over to these folks and talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Do any of you guys have any questions about the lifestyle? Is?
So while you guys were there, like around the area, how's the nightlife? Like,
Incredible. New Zealand, like Patrick said, is much slower, but the nightlife is still fun. I personally,
Sorry to interrupt. Could you please move to this section? I have a microphone, it's over there, so folks online.
They all went deaf.
Same thing, Jack, got your question.
The question was about nightlife,
Yeah,
Australia and New Zealand, so go ahead.
nightlife was
sorry.
a lot of fun. I took these guys, me and one of my friends in study abroad, we went to plenty of drag shows on Friday nights. They have an incredible drag show at Molly's in Australia. Every Friday, it is incredible. We got to sing our hearts out to Mamma Mia so many times. And then I brought these guys out and it's just a lot of fun. A lot of people, you did more nightlife like me, so you talk about that.
Yeah, so I am over 21, so that kind of goes without saying, the drinking age in Australia is lower. But I am over 21, so I have a little bit of experience and I'm more of like a quiet bar kind of person. So I like going down little back alleys, finding more interesting small stuff. And actually just down the road from the college, there was a bar that had a weekly poetry night on Wednesdays.
Oh, that was
So we would all end up being there. So that was really fun and we'd kind of get together as a group. Or, man, I don't really know. My whole thing was I'd like to just hop on a tram and see where it took me. And if I found something along the way, great. And if not, I'd walk back with Dean. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
would
know
just kind of
that's-
explore.
I know there's a few spots in New Zealand as well. I didn't do too much nightlife in New Zealand. But it's definitely, there's still some good spots you can find. It's definitely a lot more like, I'm with him where I'm a lot more of like quiet bar, like serene, let's go and just like have a little conversation. I also didn't drink at all, so if you're not like a huge drinker, but you still want to like go and enjoy company, Australia and New Zealand are huge on like including like mocktails at bars too, so I would come with them, and a lot of the time, my drinks were better than theirs, so it's still fun. Any other questions at all?
I would also mention that when we are in Melbourne, their Midsummer Festival happens, which is like their Pride Fest. And Pride then happens again when we go to Auckland. So they have it's smaller, but they have their Pride for about a week. So you get double Pride in the middle of winter.
Yes.
And I've probably already asked you this at work, but like, is there any places for like recommendations when you're on that week on your own for both Australia and New Zealand?
So,
So we went to the Daintree National is it National Rainforest?
right,
Well, the Daintree Rainforest, we had the whole thing going to Cairns. So we did the rainforest, we went to the Great Barrier Reef and we ended up doing like a bus tour around, where did we go? We had a whole
oh,
day bus.
somewhere up the mountain,
Yeah.
that's like way up there.
We really tried to pack in as much as we could on that break week without stretching ourselves too thin, but we got to knock off kind of some of those bucket list things.
And what was fun about some of those, I think it's Viator, really use Viator, because Viator on your weeks off are gonna help you a lot on like excursions to do. So we got why is it not coming? The reef was on there. I don't know why that word wouldn't come to me. The reef was on there, and so we got to do like a full, I think it was like 8 hours at the Green Island.
Yeah, 8 hours on Green Island.
On Green Island, and during that time is where the Okay, this freaked me out, but there was the moon jellyfish season.
Yeah.
So people were like
They don't
swimming with
sting.
them, they don't sting. It terrified me still, but I look over and Sam's like punching jellyfish. But that was fun because I got to swim with, there was a sea turtle that came like right in front of me and Dean, and then I swam above. I think it was probably a stingray that I gotta like swim alongside. We found sharks and a whole bunch, obviously a bunch of fish. I think we found starfish.
Yep.
You and Dean gotta go diving and actually be
Yeah,
like, you can tell
was
that
really
part.
cool. So it was Dean's first time, I scuba dive a lot. It was Dean's first time going, so but because it was a resort, he's able to go with a dive guide the whole time. So he had an absolute blast. If you've seen Finding Nemo, it's almost that shot for shot, even though like with the jellyfish, the scene with them going through, they don't sting. But that's what it looks like when you jump in the water and it's like you're in the clouds. It was so cool.
Yeah, and they gotta like actually go and see like the true colorful parts of the reef, because where we were, it was more of a resort, so the coral was unfortunately much more like discolored. But we also did a glass bottom boat tour where we got to go and see like the really huge pieces of coral. And if you do take that, don't look up, because if you look up, you're gonna get seasick, so just look down. And then the,
Point with Viator is every time you book a tour with them, they give you kind of like a cash back kind of thing. So then that can go towards your next adventure and it kind of helps you along the way.
there was a group that went to Tasmania and went to Hobart, and I almost went to that because I live in Hobart, Washington. So my mom was like, go to Hobart, Tasmania, and then text me from there. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go swim with the fish. But some group went there. I can't say much on what they did.
I think Matt hiked up Mount Wellington for a day.
There's a lot of hikes.
There's a lot of hikes. Tasmania is kind of like New Zealand from what they told us, where it's a little bit more chill, a little bit less population, but everybody said they had an awesome time.
Yeah, if you're an ocean person, go up. If you are more of like I want to stay on land, go that way,
Yeah.
essentially. So that's what I would recommend. Anything.
You advanced scuba diving or are you recreation?
Technically, I am. I just don't have the card.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
My uncle's a marine biologist, so I get some passes sometimes.
okay.
And I know we talk a lot about Melbourne because that was a lot of our that was personally my favorite thing. So like I talk about Melbourne a lot. For my week, I stayed in Auckland for my last week. That was also because I was leaving early. But I stayed the week in Auckland. I just got to go and like explore more shopping. I got a tattoo on my last day there. So like you get to kind of go and explore. Did you go with them to the South Island?
No, I actually went to the Cook Islands, to Rangitoto, not Rangitoto,
No?
Rarotonga. I went to Rarotonga. Tiny little island. It takes you about 20 minutes to drive around the entire thing, and there's actually no cell service on the island. So that I just wanted to get away and spend every day on the beach, and it's awesome. There's actually a barrier reef around the entire thing. So it's just, call it 200 yards of just pristine blue, and then the wave crashes are on the outside.
Yeah. So there is that, and then there's 2 people that went to Fiji, and then a big group that went to the South Island for their last week. I know the South Island is much better on nightlife than like where Auckland is. So they got to go and do a lot more like clubbing and raving nightlife. They went on like a lot of hikes up and got to see like all of the South Island where they stayed. I know you went to the South Island as well.
Yeah, the South Island is like really into extreme sports, which is like sort of bizarre, like, cause I had heard that, but I didn't expect it. And then you get to Queenstown and it's just like bungee jumping, paragliding, luging, zorbing. It's like all these weird sports. I didn't do any of them. I went kayak. But I also had to drive. I rented a car and you have to drive on the other side of the road there. And so that was like extreme enough for me. I was like, this is more than enough adrenaline.
We did have a 3-day break, not break, but we did like a 3-day weekend. I did a solo trip to Rotorua. So I got to go to the sulfur part of New Zealand. Smells like you're walking through a fart, but it's really cool because everything is steaming. And I got to take like it's like a self-guided tour hike kind of thing. And I'm a professional photographer, so I just brought my camera and like went crazy. But that was really cool. You can definitely use the views, Airbnb and Hostel World. Those are gonna be your best friends for your break weeks.
Like for that little break, I just actually stayed in Auckland, and I would just take ferries out of the Auckland harbor and go to the different islands and walk around.
So we're gonna talk about expenses in a little bit, right? And those, break weeks, if you could give us a rough idea of how much you spend and how
Yeah.
much conservatively
It really-
students should
yeah.
expect to, if they wanna do
activities such as the ones they did?
It depends on how much you want to do and where you can find deals for it. So like a lot of the deals that we found had kind of combos that were more reasonably priced rather than something big and extravagant. With that said, I do think someone on our trip went and did like a surf school thing for like a long weekend.
Yeah, but the other thing to think about too is the currency exchange. So everything in our minds is like 50 to 60% off. Great, right? But then you're going through like your flights and you're purchasing like USD through flights. So that's one thing you have to kind of put in mind too. I would say I didn't spend more than probably 500 to 800 on our weeks because of the currency exchange. And with like, that's including flights and stays and trips and everything. So yeah, it's,
Google Flights is your friend.
yes,
Right?
it is.
Jetstar is not.
And
Google
also,
Flights is.
literally, come, like, when you guys, you're gonna find your pack when you get there. So be with your pack, organize with the whole class who wants to go where, put them in groups, and then work together on who's booking flights, who's booking hotels. Like, I think we all booked our own flights, but someone booked like the majority. We did 2 different apartments, and
Yeah.
so
And we had like a
each person-
spreadsheet of the timing.
it was like,
price.
who's gonna be mom and dad of which place? So mom and dad buys it and then we all pay them back kind of thing. So just work together on that. We were mom and dad
Yeah,
for there,
that was
and then I think the other mom was Ellie on the other apartment. We cooked the most there, so like we became mom and dad to everyone.
That was another one of my questions. How was the meal situation? Because I was thinking about, especially with a lot of people, it'd be a great idea to cook and then kind of share the wealth
That's
essentially.
the
Yeah.
best idea for New Zealand.
Yes,
Okay.
from New Zealand, absolutely, do giant potlucks together, that's a
Okay.
great idea. It really all depends on who you stay with, like me and the girls I stayed with, we called them family dinners, so we all cooked together, we just split grocery bills. And then, we all just kind of like meal planned, and then if we didn't have time, there was a really good Indian place right down the street from us, it was so good, so if like we didn't want something to like cook, we literally just walked and got Indian, it was the best. But I think you guys.
Yeah, so there were 3 guys on the whole trip, and so we all 3 of us were roommates, and all of us ate differently.
Yeah.
One of them has a very restricted diet, and the other one still eats like a freshman college kid.
Dad.
I
I
was-
can guess which one.
Yeah, so we ended up cooking each for ourselves, but that also ended up working out, because a lot of the time we'd share, so like eggs, for example, if I wanted breakfast. Dean would have eggs every morning, but I would also sometimes take an egg or 2 if I wanted.
Mhm.
Or Matt would get like a pack of hot dogs, and then, hey, we'd have hot dogs, but then most of them would be his. And so there was some stuff that we shared, but. Yeah, he once he called it a burrito. It was a tortilla with cheese and a hot dog in the middle that
He
he.
would send us pictures of his meal, and I'm like, Matt, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, he was
But-
very top ramen, yeah. but-
And so when we're at Newman College in Australia, the meals are provided, and how was the food?
It was good. You don't know what you're gonna get that night. That is one thing, but they always have an alternative for you. And then I think someone had a soy allergy, so you're able to communicate those things, like if you're gluten-free or if you have dairy allergies, whatever. You can just communicate that. I think we rely it to like you guys, and then
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
told the chefs. And then whenever they come, it's like, oh, yours is right here, here you go, I hope you'll enjoy it. And then, while you're there, just say your P's and Q's, because you're literally getting fed, and that's a big thing as adults, like, we're getting fed, that's awesome, So that's just, yeah, but it was good.
Yeah, it's really good.
We did try kangaroo in Australia, you
That was
can try
awesome.
stuff like that. Try duck, what'd you guys, alligator something, something weird?
Oh, no, there is a wonderful First Nation restaurant, near.
Mabu Mabu.
Yeah, Mabu Mabu, and you can get, what is it, ostrich fillet and.
I wasn't a part of that.
And, yeah,
The ostrich.
I wasn't part of that group, but I did, there's an awesome little rooftop restaurant where I had a duck pate that was awesome.
Yeah, I've heard that it was good. I will say kangaroo literally just tastes like flank steak, just tougher.
Yeah.
It tastes like steak. It's the weirdest thing. It just tastes like steak, just really rough. But yeah.
Okay, before we go to more questions from our audience, there is a question here in the chat about the biology class when it comes to natural science labs, and there's a lot of field work. If you're not sure, I would say just contact your campus coordinator and your advisor and just show them the class and plan ahead, right? because it may look different in different campuses. So my recommendation is to do that, your campus coordinators. And I can put the link in the chat if you're not sure who that person might be. All right, any other questions that we have for Alana? I do have one.
Yeah.
Well, two. The first one is, how do you find that accommodation? Like, you first in Australia had single rooms, right?
Yes,
And then in New Zealand, you were sharing a room.
yeah.
How does that, work for you? And, what recommendations would you tell students about like living with
Yeah.
roommates?
So the beauty of going to Australia first and having your own space is you get to kind of grow. Your first, like, I would say 2 weeks are gonna be something to be like acclimatized to, because you are in a new country, a new time zone, you're very far away from your loved ones. So you're gonna have some difficulties of like, we're with random new faculties with us, and then I'm around a bunch of strangers, right? But for the most part, you're probably gonna have a group that you're gonna be flying in with, so you're able to connect with them and kind of have that in common of like, I came in with this group. And then, oh, you're also gonna get a Discord before you go. Discord, or I think we went to
Ooh.
WhatsApp.
We moved
And that's where you can introduce yourself to and kind of see like, me and him have a photography interest and we cook a lot. So I kind of had that in common with him when like we first met each other. And then the other thing too, again, you're starting in Australia for 3-4 weeks. You get to know everyone. You get to kind of see who you vibe with. And so that ended up being like, we had a big group together that we all ended up hanging out around a lot. And like, I think all the students made our own group chat called Kids Table. And so it was all the students that we just got to like talk about like, where are you? Where do you want to go eat? Everything like that. And then when it came down to who you pick room assignments with, at that point, you kind of got to know everyone. Obviously this wasn't hard for these guys. But like for me, I knew for sure one of the girls that I was gonna stay with, because she would always just like pop into my dorm room and hang out with me. So I'm like, okay, well, we practically already lived together. And then 2 other girls basically did the same thing. They both got COVID at the same time, moved in the same room, became like best friends. So they knew they were gonna be in the same room together. And then after that, it's just like, just kind of pick, like, if you already know someone you're gonna be with, like me and Willow were like, Sam, come with us. And so you just kind of get you get the vibe of everyone, and you just kind of, and it's kind of like school too, like everyone gravitates to their own little cliques and you know who you like, and so.
I know I didn't really have a choice because there was only 3 of us, but that also over the course of the trip that brought us together, because at the end of the day, we were the 3 guys. And that just, there's kind of a camaraderie in that, and we also had a good comedic dynamic between the 3 of us, I would say. We would always be able to make each other laugh, especially Matt. But yeah, you get closer than you expect really quickly.
You do. That is one of the big things I'm very grateful for is, you walk in where it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna love these people or hate these people. God hope I love them. I've walked out with 2 lifelong friends now and still in contact with most of the people I studied abroad with. So that's something that's really special to keep in mind too, is like, you are walking into a group of strangers, but you're gonna come out with some like really tight friends.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think even if you're coming to this experience and you're a little more introverted, that's okay. You still end up
Yes.
forging really tight bonds.
Yes.
Like from what I saw, no one was sort of left to fend for themselves.
No.
Like everyone ends up sort of like in the fold with close friends, with folks to live with, to go on adventures with. So like, even if you're not like super extroverted and outgoing, you still end up with a close-knit family by the end of it.
And what's really special about studying abroad with people too, is you are all in the exact same situation. You came here together, you're in the exact same situation of you came from a similar place and now you're in a similar place. So you're all kind of out of your natural habitats together. So there's a few times that like, we saw someone who was being more quiet that day or like came out of their room a little later. And it was immediately like, we are in each other's arms, like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? Like, what's going on? No one was left behind, because it was like, even if you like were being dramatic and had like an inkling of like, even if you're being dramatic and just like not talking to me for that day, it's like, I'm pulling you into my dorm and like, are you okay? What do you need? And they're like, I'm fine. I just don't feel like talking. I'm like, I don't care. You're going to talk to me and we're going to go and like, go get drinks or something. It was that kind of thing where just, and that was really special about Bruce and Patrick too. When we first sat down, when we got there, the biggest thing is like, we are here for each other. So if you know, it's a big thing is mental health is a huge thing. Homesickness is a huge thing. So like, if you're
Culture
feeling
shock.
off, if you know, are experiencing culture shock or something, and if you see someone kind of like not acting like themselves, even if you don't know them yet, if you don't, you know, recognize their character as usual, go and talk to them. You know, like there are some times in like Auckland, I got extremely homesick because Auckland feels like Seattle heavily. So I had that really hard for me because I didn't want to go home yet. And so I kind of got down in the dumps, and thank God for these guys. They just like took me under their wing. It's like, hey, we're gonna go shopping. We're gonna get you out of the house. Like you're literally gonna go and socialize. I don't care if you don't want to, you're coming with me. You know?
Thank you for that. Okay, last note, last comments, very shortly. Highlights for each locations for both of you.
Everything.
Great, that's the.
Melbourne was my favorite. I will go and live there. I hope I can go live there someday, honestly, because I love it so much. The life of Melbourne was my favorite. Obviously, the animals were my favorite, but just the life of Melbourne. It is like you're walking through the streets and it's so safe. It's so clean. It's so clean. The trams are a lot of fun. They're very reliable. And so having that like freedom of, you know, I don't drive and everyone around me has cool accents and there's cool food. And, you know, it's not like America where everything is processed. So you can go through the grocery stores and be like, it's healthy, it's nice. Like, I want to have all this.
There's no yellow cheese.
Yeah.
It's
There's
weird.
no yellow cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, the food is like weirdly good.
Really good.
It's like, you don't expect it, but everything you order, even if it's just a sandwich, is like next level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The food is so good. The food is so good. And then I would say in Auckland, it was absolutely the Maoris. The getting to stay in the marae and talking to Papa Ho was so much fun because he, especially when I think it was one of our last days, we had come back from the beach. Everyone was like a tomato red because we were so sunburnt. And he just sat us down and he had like, I think we had like an hour story of him talking about all of his tattoos. And he went through and told like all of the stories, every single one. And that was after we had gotten our greenstones already. And it was, yeah, just the Maori culture is something that I will carry in my heart till the day I die. And even seeing like the hakas on TikTok, I cry every single time I see one because I've been there now and like I've experienced the energy of them singing those songs. And it's just like, oh my God.
Okay, I think my highlight for Melbourne. Man, you took really good ones.
Everything.
Okay, then I fully agree with the life part. My subscript of that is I ended up walking down this kind of little alleyway and I found in this lower walk down of a building, this tiny little hole in the wall bar called Bar Clara. Ended up making friends with the bartender, super, super nice guy. And he's this like professional mixologist. We still text back and forth. And they make all their own syrups and infusions and specialty things. And it was because we'd talk about whatever recipe he was making and it felt more like a cooking class than like a bar. And half the time I wouldn't even order a drink. I would just go say hi to either him or his name's Tom. And then there was Chris and I'd ask them where to go. And Chris said something like, well, you could go to the cricket field or as I call it, my church. And it like little things like that. Getting to talk to the people it felt different. For New Zealand, the story of Papa Ho is also tough to beat. I think the whole experience at the Marae was really cool. Two of my highlights though would have been the night that we stayed in the Marae, because you're all in this big kind of long house together. Yeah.
It was so
And it
fun.
felt like
We had a
summer
big
camp. It
pillow
was so
fight.
fun. Or my other highlight would be on our last night, or one of our last nights, we decided to do an impromptu Secret Santa. That
White
was-
elephant, that was
Sorry,
fun.
white elephant.
That was
That-
fun.
So
Until it turned hostile.
It got great for-
Do you know how white elephants work? That you can steal presents? Yeah, someone was like very attached to their
Someone was,
present.
yeah. But what was funny about that too, like adding on to it, is it was kind of an also like apartment clean out. So someone would get like a can of beans and then fight over the can of beans because they needed that for the next dinner or
Yeah.
something. And it was a lot of fun.
All right, thank you so much for your input on this trip. I'm gonna go turn it over to the boring stuff. But
Should we sit down?
yeah,
Alright.
they're gonna hang out here, so if you have more questions, please just Keep them coming, especially those in the chat. All right, so we move on to program fees and expenses. This program fee for the winter 2025 is $7,300, and that covers mostly accommodations, some meals like the alumni mentioned in Australia mainly, medical insurance, and the activities that are part of the program. Other expenses to consider, we talked about it before. Tuition is separate, so you have to check in your own home campus how much tuition would be for those 15 credits that you will be taking. For Green River students specifically, it's around $1,900. Airfare, if you guys wanted to share roughly how much you spend in airfare. I said around $2,000 to $3,000 because, you know, we have Seattle to Melbourne, Melbourne to Auckland, Auckland to Seattle. And plus, if you are thinking of traveling somewhere within those break weeks, you have to add those up as well. So
I'd say that's a really good ballpark, especially get your tickets early, like as soon as you hear the program's
Yes.
happening. Do it early. I drag my feet just a little too long and pay just a little extra, but so get your tickets early, but that's a good ballpark.
They will have a list of like recommended flights to take too, so look at those, but definitely also. You might get I can't remember when the program was announced it was happening, but it might have been around Christmas time. If you get like Christmas deals, snag them as soon as you can, or like New Year's deals, cause a lot of the time they're cheaper. But definitely get it like ASAP, cause the longer you wait, the more expensive it's gonna be. I wanna say it was around no, it would not be that expensive. It was probably around $2,000. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that input. We also share the itinerary that our professors will be taking. So if you don't feel comfortable about like getting your own flights, you can kind of match what they have and they'll be traveling with you and supporting you throughout the way. So overall, you'll be looking at an investment of around $13,000. So keep that in mind, but it kind of all depends on you as well, right? Like what type of activities you do in the break week activities, whether you share costs with roommates, as our alumni were talking about. So depends on you as well. So keep that in mind. All right, so for this particular program that we're promoting, key dates, application deadline closes November 1st. So we still have a few dates, and then you do it directly to wixa.com where you apply. I'm gonna show you that in a second. And payment deadline, which means the balance. Let me backtrack. Once you apply, you have 2 weeks to confirm your spot or secure your spot by doing the deposit, which is around $650. So after those 2 weeks, November 15th will be the deadline for the balance, which will be around $600. So those are the key dates in terms of payments. If you're already, doing application scholarships for this program, there are a few that you might consider. Well, today is October 10 for the Gilman Scholarship application. That's for Pell Grant eligible students. So if you're still working on that, please do it, submit it immediately because today is the last day for that. If you are a Green River College student, you can go to the foundation. There are several opportunities open right now through October 15th. So just a few dates, but it's still possible. And then we have other type of opportunities such as the Fund for Education Abroad, which is also financial need-based for students, community college students specifically. And if you're a first-generation student, that would be the one for you. So little information about that. And then lastly, before I go to more questions, I wanted to show you the application process. Oh gosh, share screen. Let's do the whole thing. All right, so let's say you are a Green River student and then you're looking at our webpage. You're gonna find the study abroad webpage, and then on the right side, you'll find the application form, which will take you to wixa.com. And this is very basic application, so the eligibility requirements for this program specifically is that you must maintain or have a 2.5 GPA or higher. You must complete it at least 12 college credits at your home campus. If, for example, fall quarter is your first quarter, you still may be able to apply to this program. We can work with you about those requirements, but you can still do it if you're thinking about doing it for winter. You must have a passport, of course, and be able to travel outside the US. And for this program, since we had set Running Start students specifically, the minimum age to apply is 17 years older by the time of departure, right? So if you, I don't know, if your birthday is on December 17th, you're good to go. Or January the 1st, that you're good to go. So keep that in mind. And then you'll find the online preliminary application form, where it's gonna ask you some basic information about yourself, about your emergency contacts, and then it's gonna ask you to upload on an official transcript to verify that you, in fact, have that 2.5 or above GPA. It's gonna ask you to provide 2 names and email addresses of people that are gonna submit a recommendation for you. You don't have to do a letter of recommendation or ask them for that. You just have to tell them that someone from the study abroad team will be reaching out to them to ask for a reference, right? And tell them no letters of recommendation. There's a lot of faculty, Patrick probably knows that, they ask them a lot about letters of recommendation, and that can be a toll sometimes, especially in a busy, quarter. So we do it very simply through a survey, and you just gotta let them know that you'll be, putting their names for a reference before you apply. And then last but not least, to complete that preliminary application form, you have to apply or do an essay, and basically it's a very short essay, 700 to 1,000 words, and we want to know what are your motivations to study abroad. We want to know a little bit more about you and how you would be a good fit for the program. So it's a very simple application. Once we receive the recommendations and you submit your application and everything is okay, we'll invite you for an interview, which is, again, to get to know you a little bit more about your expectations, about your goals. And then after that, you will receive acceptance to the program. So it's a pretty simple process, but if you have any questions about, applying to the program, or about questions that are on the form, or about scholarships, you can always go to your study abroad coordinator for help. All right. Do we have more questions from the audience? Or in general about the program? So what is the recommended amount to bring for other expenses? It kind of depends on you, but I don't know if you wanna.
I would say bring around $5,000. I probably in total I got the Gimlin scholarship too. But with everything total, I did about $15,000 and spent exactly that with the tuition, the fees, the airfare, everything. So definitely you can do, what was the minimum? I would say minimum of 2,000 to 3,000, maximum of 5,000 to 8,000. However, if you're planning on going and getting a whole new wardrobe there, bring enough, because some people did do that, and they, I did plenty of shopping there too. I'm sure you did too. And so it just depends on what do you want to do there? Do you want to invest in food? Do you want to invest in fashion?
So yeah, the answer is depends. It depends on you. But each coordinator has a budget worksheet that can give you an idea of how much you'll be spending. So you can ask for that as well. All right, any more questions before we finish this info session? Before you go, I got some stuff for you guys that attended in person. So you'll each get a strand of licorice.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you so much. There is a question or someone has his hand up. Jeremy?
Hi, yeah. So my question is kind of a little specific. So, I'm a Puyallup tribal, and with their thing, they have like a higher education program, and they can cover some study abroad trips, but the payment has to be like coming from the school directly. So I think I emailed somebody, and they said that this trip is like it'd be paying the Green
Yes.
River specifically. Is that true?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm gonna stop the recording right now.
Thank
And-
you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
everything. And there it is.